Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right, then let's get started. On the show this week, Syria and Saudi Arabia are reluctant to make peace with Israel as the US pushes to expand Abraham Accords. What does it mean for West Asia or the Middle East, as some call it? A YouTube special on how a new law reshapes Pakistan's political landscape by expanding the powers of the Army Chief, General Asim Munir, while curtailing the authority of the country's top court. And President Trump cites human rights abuses to boycott this year's G20 summit in South Africa. Is it principled outrage or payback for a long simmering feud with President Cyril Ramaphosa? All that and much, much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. This week, US President Donald Trump hosted Syria's leader Ahmad al-Sharaa at the White House. Next week, he will host Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Our cover story dissects these seismic shifts taking place in West Asia, or the Middle East, as some call it. In a moment that would have seemed unimaginable just a year ago, Ahmad al-Sharaa, a man once hunted on the battlefield, branded a terrorist, and even held in an American prison, walked through the gates of the White House. Now, his meeting with President Trump marks a historic shift in Syria-US relations after decades of conflict. But for President Trump, the diplomatic momentum doesn't stop. Expect the US's ties with Saudi Arabia to turn a page too when the kingdom's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman comes calling on Tuesday. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports on a pivotal moment in the geopolitics of the region.
Syria's President Ahmad al-Sharaa strides into the Oval Office, the first Syrian leader ever to do so since the country's independence in 1946. Ahmad al-Sharaa, the 43-year-old former Al-Qaeda commander who toppled Bashar al-Assad in December 2024, meets President Trump for the third time this year. Al-Sharaa enters the White House through West Executive Avenue, a less visible and non-ceremonial route, rather than the traditional front driveway where foreign dignitaries are often greeted publicly. After the talks conclude, the Syrian leader briefly greets a throng of supporters gathered outside before getting into his motorcade. The door-closed meeting inside the Oval Office marks a clear shift in Washington, D.C.'s stance towards Damascus. A reset after more than a decade of brutal civil war, crippling sanctions, and years of near total diplomatic isolation.
The leader of Syria earlier, did you come to any agreements today?
Well, I've had an agreement with him. He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him, the new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful, because that's part of the Middle East. We have peace now in the Middle East, first time that anyone can remember that ever happening.
Trump and al-Sharaa met in the month of May this year in Saudi Arabia. A young, attractive guy, tough guy, strong past, very strong past, fighter, is how the US President Donald Trump described al-Sharaa at the time. It was the first official encounter between the United States and Syria since the year 2000. When the then US President Bill Clinton met with Syrian leader Hafez Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad. To be sure, this isn't about diplomacy. It's a stunning US pivot. Once carrying a $10 million bounty, al-Sharaa is now being viewed by the United States as a possible stabilizing figure in the region. In a viral moment, al-Sharaa was seen playing basketball with US officials. It's a surreal moment for some. Even hard to believe that a man who once fought under the banner of the Al-Qaeda terrorist group is now feted in the White House. Al-Shara was sanctioned by the US, the UK and the United Nations Security Council for terrorism. But just days before he was to land in Washington, D.C., all sanctions were lifted. The UNSC on 6th November and the US and UK on the 7th. The outcome of the talks was remarkable. 1. Syria becomes the 90th country to join the US-led global coalition to defeat the Islamic State. 2. The United States extends sanction relief for another 180 days under the Caesar Act. The Caesar Syrian Civilian Protection Act of 2019, also known as the Caesar Act, is the United States legislation that sanctions the former Syrian government, including the former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, for war crimes against the Syrian population. 3. Talks also covered regional issues, including a potential Syria-Israel security pact. The Trump government has tried to broker a pact between Syria and Israel, which invaded parts of southern Syria after Bashar al-Assad's fall. Israel established military bases and has demanded a demilitarized zone south of Damascus in what Tel Aviv has said is a temporary security measure. But while President Trump is keen to eventually normalize ties between Israel and Syria, Al-Shara is aiming first at a security deal, with the condition that Israeli troops withdraw from Syrian territory. Al-Shara gave a frank assessment of the talks with Israel in an interview to the Washington Post. He said, "We are engaged in direct negotiations with Israel and we have gone a good distance on the way to reach an agreement. But to reach a final agreement, Israel should withdraw to their pre-December 8 borders." He was critical of Israel's quote-unquote expansionist ambitions. He said Israel occupied the Golan Heights in order to protect Israel, and now they are imposing conditions in the south of Syria in order to protect the Golan Heights. So after a few years, maybe they will occupy the center of Syria in order to protect the south of Syria. They will reach Munich on the pathway. He went on to say that it is difficult for Syria to agree to Israel's demands of demilitarizing the region south of Damascus. This is Syrian territory and Syria should have the freedom of dealing with their own territory, he added for good measure. As for the US, President Donald Trump's interest in Syria go far beyond diplomacy. The United States is preparing to establish a military presence at an airbase in Damascus. The US maintains a majority military presence across the region, with forces in over a dozen countries and ships patrolling regional waters. The new US footprint focuses on countering threats from Iran and its network of allies, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and militant groups in Iraq and Syria. Meanwhile, the Syrian people are facing another challenge in the European Union. Years after fleeing war and finding safety in Germany, many Syrian refugees now face an uncertain future as the German government signals that some could be sent back either voluntarily or by force. Germany welcomed more refugees from Syria than any other country during the 2015-2016 crisis under the former Chancellor Angela Merkel. Today, 1.3 million Syrians live in Germany, including 25,000 children born in the country. Now, Chancellor Friedrich Merz and his coalition are calling for the repatriation. Fast forward to 18 November. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS as he's known, arrives for a black-tie White House dinner and talks. It's an equally, if not more important visit. MBS seeks a formal US defense pact, much like President Trump's security guarantee for Qatar or Saudi Arabia's own September deal with nuclear-armed Pakistan. He's also keen to buy the US-made F-35 fighter jets. Reuters news agency reported that Trump government is considering Saudi Arabia's request to buy as many as 48 F-35 fighter jets. The sale would mark a significant policy shift, potentially altering the military balance in the region and testing Washington, D.C.'s definition of maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge. The F-35, built with stealth technology that allows it to evade enemy detection, is considered the world's most advanced fighter jet. Israel has operated the aircraft for nearly a decade, building multiple squadrons, and remains the only country in the region to possess the weapons system. Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest customers for US weapons. During President Trump's visit to Riyadh in May, the US agreed to sell Saudi Arabia an arms package worth $142 billion. In short, MBS is eyeing ironclad security, civil nuclear cooperation, and trade deals. But he's in no hurry to sign up for the Abraham Accords. He insists on Palestinian statehood first. No normalization with Israel without irreversible steps towards a Palestinian state. Remember in 2020, President Trump had reached deals with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco to normalize relations with Israel. The Saudi Crown Prince will likely try to lean on President Trump for an explicit and vocal buy-in for the establishment of a sovereign Palestinian state. Mohammed bin Salman is not the only one reluctant to sign up for the Abraham Accords. Ahmad al-Sharaa remains equally skeptical of it.
Mr. President, the White House has said that President Trump would like Syria to join the Abraham Accords.
I believe that the situation in Syria is different from this situation of the countries who went on with the Abrahamic agreement. Syria has borders with Israel, and Israel occupies the Golan Heights since 1967. We are not going to enter into negotiation directly right now. Maybe the United States administration with the President Trump will help us reach this kind of negotiation.
In the interview, al-Sharaa says that Syria has entered a new era in its ties with the United States. But he's quick to add that cooperation with the US and Israel have their limits. Though the Syria-Israel talks are geared towards a security agreement based on the 1974 disengagement framework, Golan Heights remains off the table for now. So no full peace yet. These back-to-back meetings with Syrian and Saudi leaders signal President Trump's peace-through-strength stratagem of embracing former foes and striking long-term trade and defense deals. Will it herald a new West Asia or Middle East? Will Donald Trump succeed where others before him have failed? Aman Kumar's report for DD India.
In a move that sends shockwaves through global diplomacy, US President Trump has ordered a full American boycott of the G20 summit to be held at Johannesburg in South Africa on 22nd and 23rd November. No US official, not even Vice President J.D. Vance, will attend. Now, President Trump offered an explanation for the boycott on his Truth Social account. In it, he accuses South Africa of human rights abuses against white Afrikaners, claiming that they are being killed and slaughtered in a so-called white genocide. Now, for decades, South Africa was controlled under apartheid rule by the country's white minority, many of them descendants of Dutch colonists. Apartheid, a system of legalized segregation, deprived the majority of citizens of basic rights and forced many black South Africans to live in ethnic Bantustans. The system of apartheid officially ended in 1994 with the country's first multiracial democratic election, which led to Nelson Mandela becoming South Africa's first black president. Now, 3 decades on, some white South Africans who make up a minority of the population say that they are unfairly targeted by a new law that allows the South African government to seize property in public interest, in some cases without compensation. The so-called land seizure policy, known as the Expropriation Act, became law in February. Now, President Trump has singled out South Africa for harsh treatment on this issue since he returned to the White House in January.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
Now, that was President Trump talking to journalists in February this year. For its part, South Africa maintains that such laws are meant to empower black South Africans as part of efforts to redress inequalities that they inherited from apartheid, and that it's only done in just and equitable circumstances and when it is in the public interest to do so. So, is this principled outrage or payback? Peel back the layers and this boycott reeks of deeper animus. It's not just one thing that has upset President Trump. His long simmering feud with President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa goes far, far deeper. Let me unpack the explosive backstory. It all started in 2018 during President Trump's first term in office. He tweeted wildly about a large-scale killing of farmers in South Africa, a claim debunked as right-wing fiction. South Africa defended itself by saying that farm murders affect all races and that they comprise less than 1% of the country's total homicides. Fast forward to May 2025, in a jaw-dropping Oval Office ambush, President Trump dimmed the lights and rolled a video montage showing South African opposition leader Julius Malema calling for violence against white farmers. The video included footage showing rows of crosses which President Trump claimed were from a burial site for murdered white farmers.
Lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? Do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not?
Both sides of the road, you have crosses. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. But, okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa.
But as it turned out, the crosses and the bodies came from a Reuters news agency's footage in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, not South Africa. A quick fact check by some media outlets exposed President Trump's claims of a white genocide on President Ramaphosa's watch. Now, President Ramaphosa, ever the statesman, stayed composed, pointing to white South African tycoon Johan Rupert and golfers Ernie Els and Retief Goosen in the room.
I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective.
But President Trump would have none of it. He persisted with his line of argument.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on.
In the month of May alone, President Trump offered refugee status to a first group of about 50 Afrikaners who were flown to the U.S. on a chartered plane. Although his government has slashed U.S. refugee caps to a historic low, he carved out a fast track for white Afrikaners. Critics call it a dog whistle to white nationalists. Even some Afrikaners themselves rejected the U.S. offer.
We are glad of the fact that there's more attention in regards to expropriation without compensation. We are glad that we are recognized as a people, but we don't want to be refugees in another man's land. We are thankful for the offer. We're not slapping away an extended hand, but what we are saying is we want to build here.
Now, President Trump's boycott escalates this personal vendetta into geopolitical warfare. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio echoed President Trump's call by skipping a G20 foreign ministers meeting held some time ago. Apparently, he did not like the summit agenda's focus on diversity, inclusion, and climate change. Why? Because diversity, inclusion, and climate change are all code for anything woke in President Trump's book. But that's not all. South Africa's foreign policy under President Ramaphosa has been a thorn in President Trump's side. In December 2023, South Africa hauled Israel, a staunch U.S. ally, before the International Court of Justice, accusing it of genocide in Gaza. What did the ICJ say in its provisional ruling? It said that Israel must prevent Palestinian deaths and ensure that aid flows into Gaza. I should add here that the court issued this as a provisional measure. It has not yet made a final ruling on whether Israel has committed genocide, which is a process expected to take years. South Africa doubled down. It welcomed the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in May 2024. President Ramaphosa hailed it as upholding the rule of law. A furious President Trump retaliated by cutting aid to South Africa. This affected shipments of life-saving medical supplies, including HIV drugs. Remember, at more than 8 million, South Africa has the world's largest population of people living with HIV, making it a hub for research on the virus. President Trump has also taken issue with South Africa's some other foreign policies, including supporting the cause of the Palestinians. Now, what makes matters worse is that South Africa does not have full diplomatic ties with Israel. It has not had an ambassador in Tel Aviv since 2019, and in 2023, it voted to close the Israeli embassy in Pretoria. And then there's BRICS, the bloc President Trump views as an existential threat. South Africa joined BRICS in 2010. And in the last few years, it has turbocharged its ties with Russia, co-hosting summits and pushing for de-dollarization. President Trump fears that the BRICS will junk the US dollar for a multipolar world where America's veto power evaporates. President Trump, obsessed with preserving the US dollar's dominance, warned in November 2024 that any move by BRICS towards a common currency will invite a 100% US tariff. He didn't stop at that. He went ahead and slapped a 30% tariff on South Africa, the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. He also expelled South Africa's ambassador.
The issue has been not about the ambassador. The issue has been about how South Africa had taken Israel to the International Court of Justice. It's how South Africa has maintained its non-alignment in the world. It was South Africa's perceived position in BRICS. And I think it is South Africa's leadership in the G20. So I don't take this personally. I think that they found a pretext to deal with me.
For South Africa, which is chairing the G20 for the first time on African soil, it's a gut punch, but it fired back.
Bullied by the United States because of the size of our country and our economy, and because they're a superpower, they just bully us around. We must resist that.
A defiant President Ramaphosa insists that decisions on trade, inequality and sustainability will roll on without Uncle Sam. He told journalists in the coastal city of Cape Town that the summit will take fundamental decisions and that US absence is America's loss. He says that in many ways the US is giving up the very important role that it should be playing by virtue of being the biggest economy in the world. In his own words, they have chosen to boycott, and boycotting never achieves anything of great impact because decisions will be taken that will move the various issues ahead. Above all, the US boycott is all the more awkward because it will host the G20 summit at President Trump's resort in the city of Miami next year.
For generations, Miami has been a haven for those fleeing communist tyranny in South Africa. I mean, if you take a look at what's going on in parts of South Africa, look at South Africa, what's going on. Look at South America, what's going on. You know, I'm not going to, we have a G20 meeting in South Africa. South Africa shouldn't even be in the Gs anymore because what's happened there is bad. I'm not going. I told him I'm not going. I'm not going to represent our country there. It shouldn't be there. Take a look at what's happening in different parts of South America. Take a look at what's happening in different parts of the world. But now the Democrats.
So, will President Trump's snub to Africa rally the global South, or will it fracture alliances further? And can India, as a voice of the global South, have a role to bridge the divide? Watch this space. And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.